Harry Chen had survived 3 interstellar wars, negotiated peace treaties with 7 different species, and once talked his way out of an execution on Proxima Centauri b. But nothing in his 42 years of diplomatic service had prepared him for the moment when Princess Honey of the Zephyrian Empire broke protocol and ran straight into his arms. The silence that followed was absolute. The grand hall of the crystalline palace stretched 300 meters in every direction, its walls made of living glass that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns reflecting the emotional states of the Zephyrian nobility. Right now, those walls blazed crimson, the color of shock, fear, and outrage. 2,000 Zephyrian dignitaries stood frozen in their ceremonial poses, their translucent skin flickering with confusion. The Queen Mother herself, Zathra the Eternal, sat upon her throne of compressed starlight, her 6 eyes widening in an expression Harry had learned to recognize as profound disbelief. And in his arms, small and trembling, was the most important child in the known galaxy. "Harry," Honey whispered against his chest, her voice barely audible even in the deadly quiet. "You came back. 72 hours earlier." The diplomatic shuttle had touched down on Zephyr Prime with all the ceremony such occasions demanded. Harry adjusted his formal envoy robes, a compromise between human fashion and Zephyrian aesthetic sensibilities, and reviewed the mission parameters one final time. "Remember," his AI assistant Cordelia chirped in his earpiece, "no direct eye contact with royal family members, no physical contact whatsoever. Zephyrians consider touch a profound intimacy reserved for immediate family and bonded mates." "I know the protocols, Core," Harry muttered. "I wrote half of them." "Then you should know this mission is already on unstable ground. The Zephyrian Empire is our most powerful ally. If these negotiations fail—" "They won't fail." But Harry's confidence was a mask. The truth was far more complicated. The Zephyrian Empire had discovered something in the Outer Rim, something that violated every known law of physics, a technology that could manipulate the quantum foam of spacetime itself. The Galactic Council wanted it shared, the Zephyrians wanted it kept secret, and Harry was caught in the middle. The palace loomed before him, a structure that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, its architecture bending light and perspective in impossible ways. Zephyrian technology was based on principles humanity was still struggling to understand. They didn't build with matter so much as they convinced reality to arrange itself according to their desires. "Ambassador Chen," a voice called out in perfect English, "welcome." Harry turned to see Zathra's chief advisor, a being named Corlith whose rank was so high that even looking at him was considered an honor. "Thank you for receiving me. The Queen Mother grants you audience in 3 days' time. Until then, you are a guest of the palace." 3 days, 72 hours to prepare for negotiations that could reshape galactic politics. Harry nodded his acceptance. What he didn't know was that he'd already been noticed by eyes far younger than the Queen Mother's. Day 1. Harry spent the first day reviewing intelligence reports and cultural briefings. The Zephyrian Empire spanned 47 star systems and included 6 client species. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's in some areas, roughly equivalent in others. But their social structure was rigidly hierarchical, based on genetic lineage and psionic potential. At the top sat Queen Mother Zathra, who had ruled for 300 years, a short reign by Zephyrian standards, and beneath her, protected and isolated, was her only child, Princess Honey. Harry frowned at the name in his briefing document. Of course, it wasn't really Honey. The Zephyrian name was a complex harmonic pattern that human vocal cords couldn't reproduce, but the translation matrix had rendered it as something close to the concept of sweet nourishment, and somewhere along the line, human diplomats had shortened it to Honey. According to the files, Honey was 7 years old by Zephyrian reckoning, roughly equivalent to a human 9-year-old in terms of cognitive development. She possessed psionic abilities that dwarfed most adult Zephyrians. She was the future of the Empire. She was also, apparently, completely isolated. Zephyrian royal protocol demanded that heirs be kept separate from all non-family members until their 20th year, when they would undergo the rite of emergence and take their place in court. Until then, Honey lived in a sealed wing of the palace, attended only by automated systems and her mother during scheduled visits. Harry thought it sounded like a prison. Day 2. He saw her for the first time in the palace gardens, technically a violation of protocol, but one that neither party had intended. Harry had been granted permission to walk the gardens as part of his diplomatic privileges. The space was vast, filled with plants from 100 worlds, all carefully curated to create an ecosystem that existed nowhere else in nature. He was admiring a tree whose leaves phased in and out of normal spacetime when he heard it. Crying. Human instinct overrode diplomatic training. Harry followed the sound through a maze of crystalline hedges until he found her, a small figure huddled beneath a cascading fountain of liquid light. She was beautiful in the way all Zephyrians were beautiful, her translucent skin shimmering with internal light, her large eyes capable of seeing across multiple spectrums. But she was also unmistakably a child, her proportions still unformed, her movements carrying that particular uncertainty of youth. And she was crying. Harry should have left. He should have reported the breach of protocol and let palace staff handle it. Instead, he sat down on a bench 20 feet away and spoke quietly. "You know where I come from, we have gardens too. Not as beautiful as this one, but still pretty nice." The crying stopped. The child's eyes, all 4 of them, swiveled to look at him. "You're the human," she said in perfectly unaccented English. "Ambassador Chen." "Harry is fine," he said gently, "and your Princess Honey. You're not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to see anyone." "I know, I can leave if you want." A long pause, then quietly, "No one ever asks what I want." Harry felt something crack in his chest. He recognized that loneliness. He'd seen it in orphanages on Earth, in refugee camps on Titan, in the eyes of child soldiers on Arcturus IV. "Well, I'm asking," he said, "what do you want?" And so began the strangest friendship of Harry's life. Day 3. They met again the next day and the day after. Harry told her about Earth, about oceans and mountains, about cities that scraped the sky, about the messy, chaotic beauty of human civilization. Honey told him about Zephyr, about the songs that stars sang if you listened correctly, about the mathematics of emotion that her species had mastered. But mostly they just talked, about small things, about what it felt like to be lonely, about what it meant to have responsibilities you didn't choose. "My mother says I'll understand when I'm older," Honey said during their 3rd meeting. "She says isolation makes me strong." "Maybe," Harry said carefully, "or maybe it just makes you isolated." Honey looked at him with an intensity that was almost frightening. "You don't think like other adults." "I try not to." "Will you come to my presentation ceremony? Mother is introducing me to the court for the first time. It's a special exception because of the negotiations." Harry hesitated. The presentation ceremony was the same event as his formal negotiation session with the Queen Mother. He'd be there anyway. "I'll be there," he promised. He didn't know that promise would change everything. The ceremony. The grand hall blazed with light and power. Harry stood in his designated position, surrounded by diplomatic staff and human observers. The Zephyrian nobility filled the space, their bodies arranged in complex geometric patterns that held cultural significance Harry only partially understood. Queen Mother Zathura sat upon her throne, regal and terrible, her presence a weight that seemed to bend spacetime itself. And then Honey entered. She was dressed in formal robes that must have weighed more than she did, covered in quantum-locked jewels that existed in multiple states simultaneously. She walked with careful, practiced steps, her face a mask of royal composure. But her eyes found Harry immediately. He saw the fear in them, the loneliness, the desperate hope for one familiar face in a sea of strangers. Protocol demanded he look away. Diplomacy demanded he maintain proper distance. Harry had never been good at following rules that hurt children. He smiled at her, a small, genuine smile of encouragement. And that's when everything went wrong, or right, depending on perspective. Honey's composure cracked, her carefully maintained royal bearing shattered, and before anyone could react, before the guards could move, before the Queen Mother could command otherwise, the princess of the Zephyrian Empire broke into a run. She crashed into Harry with enough force to knock the breath from his lungs, her small arms wrapping around his waist, her face buried in his ceremonial robes. The entire palace went silent. Harry's hands hovered in the air for half a second, diplomatic training screaming at him to push her away, to preserve protocol, to save the negotiations. Then he wrapped his arms around her and held on tight. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you." The walls blazed crimson. Someone gasped. Harry could feel the psychic pressure of 2,000 Zephyrian minds focused on him with laser intensity. And then Queen Mother Zathra rose from her throne. The sound of her movement was like a thunderclap. She descended the steps toward them, and every instinct Harry had screamed at him to run. This was a being who could destroy planets with a thought, who had crushed rebellions and conquered star systems. But he couldn't run, not while holding Honey. Zathra stopped 3 feet away. Her 6 eyes studied them both, her daughter clinging to an alien, the alien who dared touch royalty. "Ambassador Chen," her voice resonated through the hall, "you have committed a grave breach of protocol." "Yes, Your Majesty," Harry said quietly, "I have." "You understand the consequences?" "I do." A long silence. Harry could feel Honey trembling against him. Then something impossible happened. The Queen Mother's expression softened. The bioluminescent patterns in the walls shifted from crimson to a soft amber, the color of contemplation. "How long," Zathra asked quietly, "have you been meeting with my daughter? Truth or lies, diplomacy or honesty?" Harry chose honesty. 3 days, Your Majesty, in the gardens. She was crying, I couldn't walk away." Another silence. Then Zathra did something Harry had never seen in any cultural briefing. She knelt down to his level. "My daughter," she said softly, "has never shown affection to anyone except me, our kind. We do not bond easily. We are taught from birth that emotional attachments make us weak." She paused. "I enforced her isolation because that is what was done to me, because that is how we have always maintained our strength." "With respect, Your Majesty," Harry said, "strength without connection isn't strength. It's just loneliness." Zathra's eyes glistened, a Zephyrian expression Harry couldn't quite interpret. Then she reached out and touched Honey's head, her hand gentle. "Perhaps," the Queen Mother said, "it is time we Zephyrians learned something from humanity after all." She stood addressing the assembled court. "Let it be known that Ambassador Harry Chen is granted the title of trusted companion to the royal family. His breach of protocol is forgiven. More than that, it is celebrated." The hall erupted in confused murmurs, but Zathra silenced them with a gesture. "Furthermore," she continued, "the technology we have discovered in the Outer Rim will be shared with the Galactic Council, with Earth taking primary partnership in its development. Ambassador Chen's negotiations are successful." Harry stared at her in shock. "Your Majesty, that's incredibly generous, but I haven't even presented our proposal yet." Zathra's expression might have been a smile. "You did something no one else in this empire dared to do, Ambassador. You saw my daughter not as a political symbol or a future ruler, but as a child who needed kindness. You risked everything to give her comfort." She paused. "That is the kind of species we want as our closest allies." She turned to Honey, who had finally lifted her head from Harry's chest. "My daughter, you may visit Ambassador Chen whenever he is on Zephyr Prime. You may write to him when he is away. You may call him friend." Honey's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" And then the young princess did something that made the assembled nobility gasp again. She laughed. A pure, joyful sound that echoed through the crystal halls. The walls shifted to brilliant gold, the color of happiness. Epilogue. 6 months later, Harry stood in the same garden where he'd first heard Honey crying. But this time, she wasn't alone. 3 other Zephyrian children played with her, their laughter filling the air. Zathura had begun reforms throughout the empire, allowing royal children more freedom, more contact, more connection. It was a slow process, but it was happening. "You changed an entire civilization," Cordelia observed in his ear. "All because you couldn't walk away from a crying child." Harry watched Honey show her friends a holographic projection of Earth's oceans, a gift he'd given her. "I didn't change anything," he said quietly. "I just reminded them that children need more than strength. They need love." Honey looked up and waved at him. Harry waved back. In the end, the greatest diplomatic achievement of his career hadn't come from negotiations or treaties. It had come from a simple act of human kindness, from seeing a child who needed a friend and choosing to be one. That, Harry thought, was what humanity brought to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, but the stubborn, illogical, beautiful insistence that every person, human or alien, child or adult, powerful or powerless, deserved to be seen, to be valued, to be held when they were afraid. The walls of the palace glowed golden in the afternoon light. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the future shifted toward something a little bit brighter. The end.